Like, dude, I know you're not gonna believe me. No one will believe me. I freaking killed somebody.
A 17-year-old boy, police say, killed both of his parents with a hammer and then threw a party.
I had no thought that I would get arrested.
I opened the door. I saw bloody sheets piled everywhere. I saw broken pictures with blood on them, and I was in shock.
You hit him. He also asked, why are you doing this?
And I said, why not?
You said, why not?
And then I said, well,
I killed my parents. This isn't clickbait. This is what Tyler Hadley told his friend Michael Mandel right in the middle of the party, with 60 teens in the next room. We have police reports, court breakdowns, Michael's testimony, interrogation audio, and more. The motive he had will flip your expectations. It was done in a way that's nothing like you might imagine. Guys, welcome. You know, I just want to make videos you'll crave more of. Sub if it hits, or tell me how to level up. I won't keep you waiting. Let's get into it. On Saturday, July 16th, 2011, a 17-year-old named Tyler Hadley logged into his Facebook account to make a rather cryptic announcement. At around noon, he typed out a simple message. "Party at my crib tonight, maybe." That one word, maybe, hung in the air, creating a wave of uncertainty among his friends. Almost immediately, teenagers started commenting on the post, trying to figure out the details of this uncertain invitation. Was this party actually happening or not? You see, anyone who knew Tyler was well aware that his parents were incredibly strict. On top of that, he had recently gotten into some serious trouble and was, for all intents and purposes, grounded. So the big question was, how on earth was he going to pull off a party? Was he waiting for his parents to go out of town? Or had they experienced a sudden, uncharacteristic change of heart and given him permission to have people over? One of his friends sent him a direct message, asking the obvious question: what would happen if his parents came home? Somehow, Tyler seemed completely positive that this would not be an issue. Despite having only a few close friends, he was desperate to impress the other kids in his town. There was simply no way he was going to let his parents ruin his big night. So, he confidently typed and sent his reply to his friend, a chillingly simple assurance: don't worry, they won't. Blake and Mary Jo Hadley were, by all accounts, a happy, fun, and deeply loving couple. They had moved to Florida back in the 1980s. Blake found work as an engineer at a local power plant, and Mary Jo became an elementary school teacher. People who knew Blake often referred to him as a giant teddy bear. And Mary Jo was the kind of person who never ever gave up on people, especially the people that she loved. Their relationship was often described as the model marriage. The only thing they loved more than each other were their two sons. Their first son, Ryan, was born in 1987, and their second son, Tyler, completed their family in 1993. Ryan was an easy baby from the start, but Tyler, well, he faced struggles literally from the moment he entered the world. Tyler was born premature and had to spend the first month of his fragile life inside an incubator. Now, this incredibly rough start caused Blake and Mary Jo to be quite lenient, even indulgent with their boys. They wanted to mitigate any more hardships they could for Tyler. While everything always seemed to go smoothly and happen easily for Ryan, as Tyler grew up, he encountered more and more medical issues. One of these was a thyroid abnormality. The thyroid plays a massive role in a child's growth and development, and as a result, Tyler became deeply insecure about his short stature as a child. Unsurprisingly, worrying constantly for their little boy caused Blake to develop some anxiety of his own. Mary Jo was also diagnosed with mild clinical depression during this challenging time. Mary Jo wanted to do everything in her power to protect Tyler from low self-esteem. To boost his confidence, she actually asked their doctor to place him on a growth hormone so that he could catch up physically to his peers. However, by kindergarten, Tyler was already beginning to display behaviors that made his parents worry that he might have inherited some mental struggles as well. A doctor diagnosed Tyler with depression at the incredibly young age of 6 years old. Look, I'm not a doctor, but putting a 6-year-old on that kind of medication, it just feels like they were trying to find a chemical solution for a problem that needed a completely different kind of attention. Does anyone else feel that way? By the time he was 10 years old, Tyler was placed on the antidepressant Lexapro. This is extremely rare for children his age because it is a very potent and strong drug. Typically, a child will only be placed on a medication like that after a very recent traumatic event, or as a last resort when counseling and therapy have not been effective. But Tyler's doctor and his parents felt like it was the right decision for him at that time. Even through all of these difficulties, Tyler was said to be very quiet in class, very respectful, and although he wasn't considered popular, he was generally well liked by his peers. As he entered his early teens, like most kids, Tyler started pushing boundaries. He became a little moody and defiant towards his parents. At 15 years old, his mom took him back to the doctor, and he was switched from Lexapro to the medication Prozac. Shortly after this change, Tyler started to lose his quiet and shy demeanor. He began causing all sorts of disruptions in class. So, it was back to the doctor he went, where he was then diagnosed with ADHD and placed on Adderall. Pretty much all boys go through that awkward, chubby phase. Let me just start by saying that no shame, no blame in that at all. But for Tyler, who was already feeling different from having so many medical problems, going through this phase really lowered his self-esteem. This was the very thing that Mary Jo had worked so hard to prevent. So she pushed to keep him on those growth hormones, hoping that it would make him taller and in turn raise his confidence. As you can see, Mary Jo loved her son so much that she wanted to do everything she felt was right to make him a happy kid. Tyler and his mom were said to be very close. Whenever they would get into arguments, he always felt extremely guilty afterwards. This is true even though teens mouthing off to their parents is a fairly normal part of growing up. During one argument, he told his mom to shut up, but then he immediately apologized right after. He even told his best friend how sorry he felt for talking to his mom that way and said he couldn't believe he had done that. So, like I mentioned earlier, Tyler was a really quiet kid up until high school. He didn't have many friends at all besides his best childhood friend, Michael, and a few kids that were in his neighborhood. People weren't mean to him, but he desperately wanted to find a larger group of true close friends. So Tyler and Michael both started trying to fit in by hanging around kids who wouldn't exactly be considered good influences. Port St. Lucie is a small town on the Treasure Coast of Florida. It's located smack in the middle of Orlando and Miami. It's been referred to as Florida's ecological jewel because of the lush nature preserves and aquatic sanctuaries that are home to native alligators and manatees. It's a boat lover's dream and a golfer's playground, with some of the best courses in the state. It sounds like a place that any adult would love to live, own a vacation home, or even settle into for retirement. However, there wasn't much for teenagers to do there, especially back in 2011. If high school-age kids weren't involved in sports or preoccupied with a job, they tended to get into mischief just out of pure boredom. Tyler was no different. And since he was never really the jock type, he had to find other ways to have fun. It was really common for teenagers in the area to party, to drink, to dabble in drugs, and even to steal or vandalize property. Mary Jo and Blake, being deeply concerned with their son's safety and his future, did their best to rein him in, but that only seemed to push him further away. And that's kind of how it goes when you try to have too much control, whether it's in parenthood, a relationship, or a friendship. People start to get resistant, and they start to push away and pull back. You kind of have this struggle where you're just butting heads. The group that Tyler was trying so hard to fit in with got him involved in marijuana and with drinking alcohol. These things may have temporarily taken his mind off his anxiety, his depression, and his low self-esteem. So to him, it probably looked like a great solution. But in an attempt to impress the group, one day, Tyler went with these kids to an area in one of the nature preserves where he helped set a couch on fire. To an immature teenager, this may have just seemed like no big deal, just a harmless pyro prank. However, the fire got so big and so out of control that they could no longer contain it themselves. The fire department had to come to prevent it from spreading into the nature preserve, which federally protects the animals that live there and their environment. The kids didn't consider how much trouble this could have gotten them into, but Tyler, along with some of the others, got off easy with just a simple warning from the county judge. Honestly, a simple warning? For setting a fire that could have destroyed a nature preserve? This is where it starts. The system teaches these kids that there are no real consequences. Although the judge was easy on Tyler, his parents were not. They were furious. And they started to realize that coddling him and allowing him to get away with so much as a child due to his medical conditions was starting to come back now. It was starting to bite them. So right away, they got Tyler back into counseling and started doing home drug tests. His parents were a little strict, possibly a little smothering, and a little overprotective, but they cared deeply for their son. However, due to his immaturity, Tyler was unable to view his parents' actions as signs of love. Instead, he viewed them as attempts to control him. They were now locked in a power struggle with a rebellious teen who was once their quiet, respectful, and emotionally fragile little boy. The same boy who apologized after arguments, who loved them. Tyler went through yet another medication change because his mother felt as though his depression may have been contributing to these new behaviors. So while most of us can remember times where we wished our parents would just let us do whatever we wanted and stay out of our business, at the end of the day, we knew it was because they wanted what was best for us. We especially know that if we're parents ourselves now, and we're doing this with our own children, guilty. So some of us may have slammed doors in our parents' faces, or threatened to run away, or stomped up the stairs yelling, "I hate you," but that was pretty much the extent of it for a lot of us. But for some reason, Tyler had feelings of rage towards his parents, and it only grew as their grip on him got tighter. Tyler started to make comments to his friends that he wished he could just end their lives. His friends would awkwardly chuckle and shrug it off, thinking he was obviously joking and was just upset for getting busted or grounded. But Tyler wasn't laughing when he would say these things. I don't know about you, but if my friend said something like that with a dead serious face, I'm not chuckling. I'm calling someone. How many times do we have to hear this story before people start taking these jokes seriously? By age 17, if Mary Jo and Blake eased up at all, Tyler was right back to drinking and doing drugs. So one day, Tyler and one of his so-called friends got into a fight, and he was actually arrested on charges of assault and battery. Once again, Tyler was given a slap on the wrist. He served less than a week in the county jail and 2 weeks of house arrest. Let's be real. A week in jail for assault and battery? He's escalating, and the system is just giving him a timeout. This isn't discipline. It's a green light. It seemed like he was slipping further and further down this path of destruction, just not caring about anyone or anything. Assaulting someone he considered a friend showed his growing callousness towards people he had relationships with. Tyler's brother, Ryan, recalled visiting his family and seeing their mother worriedly waiting up all night for Tyler to come home. One night, Tyler's parents caught him sneaking into his room through a window, clearly intoxicated. Feeling helpless and not knowing what else to do, they took away his phone, his car, and made him start an outpatient substance abuse therapy program. Tyler was having to attend this program daily, and he felt like he was suffocating under his parents' control. He would have text conversations with friends where he expressed just how much he hated going to these therapy sessions. Instead of the program improving Tyler's mental health, it seemed it was declining internally. He even made comments on several occasions that he wished he could just take his own life. But Tyler's dark thoughts weren't just suicidal, they turned homicidal. Weeks earlier, he'd debated weapons, gun too loud, poison too slow, knife too messy. He picked the claw hammer from the garage. Silent, brutal, perfect, calculated, not impulse. One day, when talking to his best friend Michael, he made a chilling statement. "I want to kill my parents and then throw a party afterwards. It would be so cool because no one has ever done that before. I'm sorry, but first of all, there's nothing cool about that. And there's a reason that nobody has done it before. Because it is psychotic. Absolutely psychotic." But this statement, when I first heard about this case, rang true in so many ways. It feels like so many kids these days are committing crimes because of the notoriety they believe it will carry. They think it'll give them social media fame, that they'll be noticed, that nobody's ever done it before, and so that's why they do these things. And it is just such a scary time in which we live. But I'm sorry, I digress. Let me get back to the case. So even though that remark was oddly specific, Michael still thought Tyler was just joking around. He had known the kid for years. And even though this was a rough patch for the Hadley family, Michael could never fathom his best friend actually hurting his parents for real. Since Tyler was basically grounded for life after he was caught sneaking in the house drunk, the social life he had worked so hard to build was evaporating. It really just diminished down to Facebook messages on the family desktop computer. His friends recall thinking that their conversations were pretty typical. They couldn't have known that inside Tyler's brain, anger, resentment, and compulsive thoughts were growing more and more intense. During his mental downward spiral, he decided to hide a kitchen knife in his bedroom, just in case he ever had the guts to do something about his parents constantly trying to control him. In July of 2011, the Hadley family made a trip to Georgia to visit some family. Some of his aunts and uncles recall Tyler acting a little odd. One of his aunts recalls worrying that he was showing signs of an eating disorder. Tyler had always struggled with body image issues and was terrified of looking overweight. So when she saw vomit off the side of the porch after dinner, she knew that it was his. His uncle said that during his visit, Tyler would pace around and say things like, "None of you love me. None of you love me." And even though everyone considered the visit to be pleasant, none of them knew that that would be the last time they ever saw Blake and Mary Jo. The weeks after the family arrived home, Tyler seemed to be acting a little nicer towards his parents. He was being cooperative about going to his therapy meetings, and Mary Jo felt like things may be on the up and up. Finally, after such long battles and so many years, she even had a text message exchange with some of her friends where she wrote that she felt Tyler was finally over the hurdle. She was so happy that he was back to his old self. Just, a breath of fresh air. She finally had the weight lifted off her shoulders. Like my old loving son is back. That next Saturday, on July 16th, 2011, Tyler made that Facebook post on his wall that said, "Party at my house." Maybe. Were Mary Jo and Blake actually letting Tyler throw a party now that his behavior seemed to be turning around? Tyler's friends highly doubted it and questioned him on the post. But he was determined to prove to them that he was going to have a party and that none of them would ever forget it. Somehow, he had to get through to his parents that he was having this party. And so to hype himself up to do so, he listened to the song "Feel Lucky" by Lil Boosie. Shortly before 5 p.m., Mary Jo hopped on the computer to do some reading for church the next day. She was going to read a Bible verse at Sunday Mass and needed to brush up on the words. The verse Mary Jo was set to read was 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, and you've all heard it. Whether you've seen the movie Wedding Crashers, whether you've been to any single wedding, whether you've seen any sort of rom-com movie, but it reads, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away." And she was reading perhaps the most famous verse from the Bible about love. Mary Jo's love for her son had been patient. It had been kind. And even though he had done so many things, she was doing her best to not keep a record of the wrongs. She studied these words, preparing to deliver them to the congregation of her church, probably hoping that they would resonate with them and help them through tough times like they had helped her. Little did she know, while she was sitting at her computer, the son she loved so much was standing right behind her. Tyler had actually been standing behind her office chair for more than 5 minutes. He had just taken 3 ecstasy pills and was wearing boots, a jacket, and gloves. In his hand, he held a claw hammer. He stood there silently, staring at the back of his mom's head. First thing he did was lock the family beagle, Mandy, in a closet down the hall. Didn't want her barking or watching. Trying to get the courage for what he had set out to do. The drug kicked in, and he was starting to feel jittery, energized, and like his mind was racing a mile a minute. The thoughts of his mom grounding him, taking away his phone, taking away his car, trying to control every single aspect of his life, trying to control everything since he was a little kid, always wanting him to be perfect like his brother Ryan, always making him go to the doctors, go to the therapist, go to counselors, treatment centers. All of it was flooding back into his mind. Blake, who had been taking a nap, burst out of the master bedroom to see what was happening to his wife. His son, Tyler, standing over his terribly injured wife, was the last thing he ever expected to see. He and Tyler locked eyes, and there was a very long pause. Blake asked Tyler the same question. Why? Why are you doing this? And Tyler must have looked like a crazed, rabid animal with so much adrenaline just pumping through him from what he had just done and from the drugs. And he just answered by screaming at the top of his lungs, "Why the F not?" From there, he lunged toward his father. Blake turned and ran in an attempt to get behind their bedroom door and call for help. Just hours earlier, he'd hidden every cell phone in the house. No 911 calls, no escape, pure calculation. Tyler caught up to Blake and started a violent attack on his father with the hammer, just like he had done to his mother moments before. Blake fell on the bed and then down to the floor while trying to defend himself. But he was overpowered during Tyler's rampage and succumbed to the injuries inflicted by his son. I mean, it gives me the chills just knowing it and reading it and saying it to you guys. It just, oh my God, it irks me. It irks me. I cannot even imagine that moment. It is truly like something from a horror film.
Of debris in their bedroom, and through a party, there was this.
I remember looking at myself in the mirror and laughing and just looking at myself.
He couldn't recall why he did that, but he recalled a grotesque image in that mirror.
So to calm himself down from the frenzy he was in, he took a hot shower and then went and put on clean clothes to get ready for the night ahead. Tyler went and got a debit card out of his mother's wallet and drove to an ATM, where he withdrew about $2,000 from his mom's debit card. Beer runs, cigarettes, chaos, cash. When he arrived back home, he sat down at the computer where his mother had been sitting just hours earlier and signed into Facebook to let everyone know that the party was definitely on. On a Saturday night in July, teens in the area were desperate to find something fun to do. So the thought of a party at a different person's house than usual sounded like a cool change, a change of pace. And slowly but surely, high school and college-age kids started trickling into Tyler's house. Soon, 20, then 40, then 60, and by midnight, almost 100 people were partying in the Hadley home. Kids were drinking, doing shots, playing beer pong. Throughout the night, several people asked Tyler where his parents were, to which he gave all sorts of different answers. He answered by saying that they were in Georgia, they were on vacation in West Palm Beach, and he even told some of them that he was the owner of this house and that his parents lived out of state. At first, for some reason, he was concerned about people smoking in the house. He yelled at them to take the cigarettes outside, possibly subconsciously, maybe feeling guilty for tainting his parents' home. But then he realized that a bunch of people outside would call more attention to his house party, so he told them that they could smoke inside so that the cops wouldn't be called. The party guests took this as a go-ahead to completely just desecrate this house. They were ashing on the floor, putting cigarettes out on the carpet, on the couches, ransacking the fridge and the cabinets for food, throwing beer cans and trash all over the place, flipping furniture. Some noticed red smears on walls, thought it was from a fight, and making the Hadley home look like a disgusting frat house after Hell Week. I mean, just a mess. Disgusting. And Tyler was letting the success of his party take his mind off what was in the bedroom down the hall. Look, I get that they're just dumb kids at a party. It makes my skin crawl. The level of disrespect is just off the charts. He told people to stay out of the hallway and the master bedroom, and surprisingly, nobody really tried to venture back there, which surprises me, because at these big parties, people are usually looking for secret areas to either hook up or to do drugs, but they were listening to Tyler. His best friend Michael was also there, and they played dozens of games of beer pong until eventually all of the beer was gone. Tyler asked one of his friend's older brothers, Mark, who was 21, if he would take him to the gas station to get more beer. Mark agreed, and the two, along with Mark's girlfriend, rode to a nearby gas station. Tyler handed Mark a wad of $20 bills, and when he went inside to get the beer, Tyler said to Mark's girlfriend that his parents were dead. She figured he meant that they had passed away a long time ago, but this is one of the first signs that Tyler was having a hard time holding in the secret about what he had done. Now, was it because he was feeling guilty, or was it because he was trying to show off to her? So when Tyler, Mark, and his girlfriend arrived back at the house, the party looked like it was literally the inspiration for the movie Project X. And if you haven't seen that movie, it is just wild. But kids were texting their friends from surrounding towns to come because it was one of the biggest parties ever. This party was like an epic, go down in history type of party to these kids. Tyler looked around and realized that he only knew a few of the people at his own party. But everyone seemed to be having a great time, and that's all that mattered to him. At the expense of his house, at the expense of his parents, at the expense of everything. When he was asked about any house rules, he said, "Just do whatever you want." Some people that Tyler did know noticed he was starting to act a little bit strange. He seemed kind of down and maybe even getting paranoid because he kept peeking out the front blinds. There must have been dozens of cars on the block. and he was probably nervous about the cops getting called for a noise complaint for too many people, for trespassing, for loitering, you name it. A couple of people who spoke to Tyler that night mentioned that he said he wanted to take his own life soon. You'd think this would be more alarming than they made it seem, since that's not a typical statement or small talk that you would make at a party, especially not one of these parties. At around midnight, when Mark was getting ready to leave, Tyler asked if he could talk to him outside. When they got outside, Tyler said, "Dude, I know you're not going to believe me, but I did some things. I might go to prison for life. I don't know. I'm freaking out." Mark asked Tyler what he was talking about, and he said, "I killed somebody." Mark replied, "You killing someone is your own business. Don't be telling me that. Don't be telling me that sort of thing. I don't need to know." "Are you kidding me? I don't need to know?" Yes, you absolutely do need to know. That is the most cowardly, selfish response I have ever heard. Your friend just confessed to murder, and your reaction is to cover your own ass? Unbelievable. Which I have a real issue with this, Mark, because if somebody's confiding in you that they just killed somebody, well, sure, it may not directly be your business, but now it is your business. And it's your business to find out who it is they killed so that you can alert the authorities. It is your business. It's not, "Oh, you killed someone. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Do whatever you want to do." Like, I take real issue here with that. So when good old boy Mark left, Tyler went back inside. He talked to a few people and told them that he wanted to do something cool before he left. When they asked where he was going, he said he was going to take his life because he did something bad. Now, I doubt Tyler was actually saying this because he was feeling guilty. I definitely think it was more so that he wanted attention, or because he wanted people to ask what the bad thing was that he did. As if a party with 100 people wasn't enough attention for him, he needed more. He was itching for something more. At around 1 a.m., Tyler found his best friend, Michael. And since he didn't get the response he was looking for from Mark, he asked Michael if they could talk outside in private. So Michael walked with his childhood best friend down to the stop sign at the end of the street, confused as to what Tyler needed to tell him that was just so secretive that they needed to get that far away from the house. So Tyler turned and stared at Michael and said, "I killed my parents." Michael, obviously thinking that Tyler was joking, just kind of rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, right." But Tyler was very serious. And he very seriously replied, "I'm being real. I'm not lying. If you look close enough, you'll see the signs." Gives me the creeps. So even though Blake and Mary Jo's cars were still in the driveway, nothing in Michael made him believe that Tyler was serious. He was drunk, on drugs, probably just playing a stupid prank.
After he told me, I didn't believe him because he's been my best friend forever. I would never suspect anything like this. And I was looking around. He told me if I look good enough, I can see signs. I looked on the floor.
After Michael saw all of the evidence, including Tyler's father's leg sticking out from beneath the pile of his possessions, he ran out of the room. One partygoer said that when Michael slammed the bedroom door, he looked terrified and even a little deranged. He needed Tyler to tell him what happened. So Tyler explained everything. How he was angry at his parents, how he had been planning this for weeks and even considered different weapons before he settled on the claw hammer. He told him about how he stood behind his mother until he had the guts to strike her, and how his dad came running out asking him why before he ended his life too. He told him about his reflection in the mirror and laughing. After he did his best to just clean everything up before the party, Michael was in utter shock at what his best friend had just told him. Running away and yelling for help didn't even cross his mind. This was Tyler, his best friend. He saw the evidence, but he still could not believe it. In a daze, he slowly started to come to terms with the fact that this would probably be the last time he ever saw his best friend. Michael stayed at the party a little while longer, allowing his mind to adjust to the realization that everything was going to change for the both of them. He asked Tyler to take a selfie with him, hoping to preserve the last moments he'd ever spend with his best friend. Hold on, let me get this straight. You just confirmed your best friend murdered his parents, and your first thought is a selfie? What is wrong with these kids? There is a complete moral disconnect here. That's not friendship. That's just sick. Now, I've got an issue with this too, because if I've never been in that position, granted, but if my best friend just told me that, like, she killed her two parents and they were in the other room as we've all been partying for hours, the last thing I would do is be like, hey girl, come on over here. Selfie. Like what? And although it wasn't a happy picture, because the picture, unlike any that they had ever taken before, showed both of their faces with an indescribable mixture of sadness, fear, and pain, it still was just such an odd move. At least to me. It just feels weird. So soon after, Michael decided to leave the party. A few minutes later, Tyler called to ask where he went, and Michael told him that he was tired and wanted to go home to go to sleep. Tyler told him he was going to have another party the next day and wanted to know if he would come. Michael told him he'd be there and hung up the phone, still trying to wrap his head around what he had to do next. At around 2 a.m., one of the teenagers announced that there was another party going on nearby. So the majority of the kids at Tyler's house had no loyalty towards him, and they decided that they wanted to go check out this other party to determine which one was better. There was a mass exit of dozens of kids drunkenly piling into cars, screaming with their heads out the windows and peeling out down the street. So Tyler stood in his yard and yelled, "Where is everybody going?" And as the majority of the people left, he felt alone, possibly questioning if all of this was even worth it. The commotion caused a neighbor on the block to call the police, but when they showed up, less than 20 people were left at Tyler's house. Maybe it's just me, but why didn't the cops go inside? A noise complaint at that hour with that much commotion. You don't just tell them to keep it down and leave. You check the situation. They were literally feet away from a double homicide. They knocked and stood outside the front door and simply asked Tyler to keep it down before getting back into their cruisers and driving away. Not at all, knowing that there was a crime scene right on the other side of that door.
How can I go see him? How could I do that? You know, it breaks my heart. It really does. I love the kid, you know. But he took away my best friend, my confidant, my brother, and how can you sit down and have a normal conversation with somebody that have robbed you something so precious?
Michael and Mark, as well as other partygoers, gave statements to the police. Now, in 2011, it was unclear how juveniles should be charged and prosecuted for crimes such as this. But ultimately, the judge decided to charge him with 2 counts of first-degree murder without the possibility of parole. Initially, Tyler pled not guilty, but changed his plea to no contest, accepting conviction but not admitting guilt, and he did that only 1 week before the trial was set to begin. Sentencing was a brutal experience for the jury and especially for the Hadley family. They had to hear the details of Blake and Mary Jo's final moments. Friends of Tyler's took the stand and recounted their experience at the party and things that he had told them leading up to what happened. The prosecution painted a picture of Tyler being a vengeful, controlling teenager that was never going to allow his parents to control his life. They said that his motive for what he did to his parents was pure selfishness, of wanting to throw a party to impress his friends or gain new friends. And the defense argued that Tyler's brain wasn't functioning properly due to a lifetime of medical conditions made worse by dangerous medications, immaturity, and impulse control as a result of his ADHD. The psychologist called to testify explained that mixing drugs and alcohol with his prescription medication would exacerbate his obsessions of wanting to harm his parents because he viewed them as an obstacle in reaching his goals.
Court, many professionals had found that Tyler Hadley had significant mental illness over the years, beginning at around age 10. He argued Tyler's premature birth and his small head circumference are risks for a whole host of problems later in life, and that when he first met Hadley, he had major depression with what was called psychotic features. He added, severe mental illness is why a young man with good parents went and killed them.
At least in the month or so before he was arrested, he had developed a delusional thought that became very obsessional and very much a rumination of that he needed to kill his parents and he needed to die.
Dr. Myers also said Tyler Hadley's use of alcohol and drugs, including cough syrup, was, quote, him taking whatever he could get to get out of the state of mind he was in when he was not high.
Tyler was diagnosed by psychologists in jail with major depressive disorder with psychotic tendencies. This could result in hearing some voices, but not having an exchange with these voices like a person with schizophrenia would have. So even though the defense claimed that Tyler did express remorse for what he did to his parents, this was refuted by the prosecution. They had evidence of Tyler signing autographs in jail, referring to himself as Bam Bam, Hammer Boy, and writing, "It's hammer time." I mean, oh my God. Just once again trying to impress others with some kind of, misplaced sense of humor and some tough guy persona. It's sick. His cellmate also had stated that Tyler told him the party was great. "You should have been there. This no showmate I was staying, not my song." Not only did Tyler's actions affect his family emotionally, but it divided them as well, due to disagreements about what they felt would be the correct punishment. Ryan, Tyler's brother, testified that even though he still loved his brother, he felt that he deserved the highest possible penalty for what he did to their parents. While the defense argued for a lighter sentence than life without parole, Blake's brother pointed out that Tyler already got a lighter sentence. He gets to live. So due to this, he should have to live his entire life in prison with no chance of ever getting out. However, Mary Jo's mother, Tyler's grandmother, felt that Mary Jo would want her son to be given another chance. She felt like even though he committed a horrible, atrocious crime, his life was worth saving. She believed he could be rehabilitated and one day be a productive member of society. I understand a grandmother's love. I really do. Forgiveness would not be in my vocabulary, ever. I don't know about that, Grandma. Testimony from Tyler Hadley's grandmother. Her grandson took the lives of his parents. Important St. Lucie. He was just 17 years old at the time. She told the judge that she hoped he could see the light of day again, even if she won't be around when he's out. She said he's a loving person.
From Tyler Hadley's grandmother, her grandson killed his parents in Port St. Lucie. He was just 17 years old at the time. She told the judge that she hoped he could see the light of day again, even if she won't be around when he's out. She said he's a loving person.
He said, people think I don't think about this or that I don't. He said, I've heard somebody say, do I ever cry? He said, yes, Grandma, I cry. When I go to bed, I put the sheet over my head and I cry. I think he always thought he never had a friend. He never could, for whatever reason, but he just felt like he was never good enough. He played soccer, he wasn't good enough. He played a trombone, he wasn't good enough. He played the drums, he wasn't good enough. He just always felt like he was like a step.
DiVittorio fought back tears as she talked about the day before Hadley killed his mother and father. They all went out to eat for dinner. DiVittorio says Hadley complained of a headache on the way home.
And he turned to me and gave me a hug. I love you, Grandma. He sat up and turned to Sam and said, I love you, Grandma. And then he laid back down. When I got out of the car, I saw he was laying back down on the console. That's the last time I saw him and Blake and Mary Jo.
Ultimately, when the sentencing was announced, Tyler was given 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Now, the majority of his family felt relieved, but they knew that a life sentence meant appeals. It would be a long time before true healing could take place. Now get this. In 2018, Tyler's conviction ended up being overturned due to changes made to national guidelines on how to charge and convict juveniles. It was also argued that the judge in his case did not consider that Tyler was never convicted of a capital offense prior to the events involving his parents.
This newscast started an appeals court overturning the double life prison terms for Tyler Hadley, the man convicted of bludgeoning his parents to death in their Port St. Lucie home back in 2011. Now, here's what this means. There's a couple of bullet points I need to tell you about this, that he will have a resentencing date. This does not mean that he will get out of prison. Taking a look at video of his trial that we covered extensively. In this appeals ruling, the original trial court, according to the appeals court, saying that trial court had said that Hadley had previously committed a capital felony, a very serious crime, prior to the murders. That turned out not to be true. Also, the judge in the appeals court said he didn't set an alternative to a life sentence, that original trial judge. This full story, if you want to read much more about it, and there are a lot of details in it, go to our website, WPTV.com.
Old wounds were just being ripped open with salt being dumped in, when all they wanted to do was be able to move on and live their lives. Now they had to sit in court and rehash the gruesome details of Blake and Mary Jo's final moments. Tyler's defense argued that he had time to reflect, to grow up, and that his brain had fully matured, which has allowed him to understand the magnitude of the actions he had committed when he was still a child. During the time between his original sentencing, Tyler received his GED and was a born-again Christian who attended regular ministries and had aspirations to become a pastor one day. Tyler took the stand too and made an apology to his family, which some felt lacked the conviction of someone who truly felt remorseful.
I really don't know, contrary to what anyone else may tell you.
But says he can't explain why.
I still don't understand myself and the reasons for my atrocious actions. I really don't know, contrary to what anyone else may tell you. I'm telling you the truth. For me to try and explain would be like making excuses, and there is no excuse.
That's my brother there. We loved him very, very much.
After the hearing, Tyler's uncle, Mike Hadley, said this experience was like a third funeral for him.
We'll never forget. We'll live with this for the rest of our life. He gave us a life sentence.
Tyler Hadley said to the judge that in the past he tried to lie and manipulate and lost the trust of those closest to him.
I'm sorry to my brother, my grandparents, the rest of my family, and my parents' friends. I'm sorry that I took them away from you.
Even though it did appear that Tyler had matured during his time behind bars, the judge wasn't convinced that he didn't understand right from wrong, even with his mental conditions, when he took his parents' lives back in 2011. The original sentence was upheld, and Tyler was yet again given 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole.
He turned to me as the judge was pronouncing his sentence and he said, "Today the hammer of justice falls upon Tyler Hadley." And I think that sums it up. I will tell you that in 27 years of practicing law, I've never heard a judge more precisely and more succinctly summarize the facts and circumstances of a case. That order is simply bulletproof. If this order is subject to appeal and reversal, then I can't imagine anything ever withstanding appellate scrutiny again. I've said this for the last 8 years. If Tyler Hadley doesn't deserve life in prison, then no one does. So we're extremely pleased. I pray to God that the Hadley family finds some peace, although I doubt that's ever likely to occur. But there has to be finality. This has to be it. We cannot tolerate another resentencing of this nature. It's simply unfair to the victims. And they've been left behind in this process for 8 years.
His family stated that there needed to be a finite ending to this situation, and they hoped that this would be the end of appeals so that they could finally heal.
We would just like to say that we're very happy to have this over with. We feel like this is the 3rd funeral we've gone through. Even though we love our nephew Tyler, we know he's done a terrible thing. But we sat in this courtroom for the last week and we listened to a bunch of very brilliant Yale, Brown, Harvard law professors that gave us a good education on the adolescent development of maturity with the brain. However, Tyler Hadley knew the price that he was going to have to pay to have a party like no other. He knew the price. He was mature enough to understand that price. He even mentioned to his friends that he was going to go away for a long time, for the rest of his life. He knew the price. We believe in all that, but we can't forget. We'll never forget. We'll live with this for the rest of our life. He gave us a life sentence. Blake and Mary Jo didn't get that chance to live. He took that away from us. And now we sit here discussing in a court whether or not we should let him loose in 18 years with a resentencing. I just think when you're sane, as a society, we have to know when do we call it an end, call it quits.
Besides the obvious victims in this tragedy, Blake and Mary Jo, their son Ryan was left alone, losing pretty much his entire family. He would go on to write an emotional and inspiring book called 1,000 Fireflies that told the story of his parents, the dark roads he went down during the grieving process, getting help, and discovering the light at the end of an extremely long, painful, and exhausting tunnel. Another not-so-obvious victim of Tyler's actions was his best friend, Michael. At the party, Michael's outlook on life and his close relationships were changed. The moment he saw the body of Tyler's dad under the rubble in that bedroom, he struggled ever since with anxiety, trusting people, having nightmares, and would end up getting into trouble with the law. Even though Michael has survived all of these hardships, he was never the same after what happened. Michael got PTSD, nightmares, but clawed his way out, became an advocate against teen violence. There isn't a day that goes by that Mary Jo and Blake's families don't miss and think about them. And it seems like Tyler either wasn't aware or didn't care how far the pain he caused would spread. The scariest thing about this tragedy isn't just the brutality of the crime, but the chilling emptiness behind it. It shows us what happens when a person's desire for attention becomes more valuable than human life itself, and how easily a normal home can hide the darkest secrets. Now, tell us honestly, what made you angrier here? The absolute brutality of the murders, or the system that gave him a slap on the wrist time and time again, basically giving him a green light? Be honest. What would you do if your best friend confessed to murder? Would you take a selfie, or would you call the police immediately? And could you ever forgive a family member for a crime this monstrous, like his grandmother did? Or is there a point where love has to stop and justice must begin? Has anything like this ever happened in your life? Drop your story below. We read and reply to everything. Haven't subscribed yet? Then you are missing out on dozens of cases that will flip your understanding of justice, and fix that right now. May Blake and Mary Jo Hadley rest in peace. Folks, glance at your screen right now. You're seeing a case popping up that's eerily similar to Tyler's nightmare, packed with the same twisted family secrets. If this one got under your skin, trust me, these next ones will hit even harder, flipping your view on betrayal at home. We're all about those raw family dramas here, not just stories, but real insights to help you feel safer or spot red flags in your own circle. They're worth your time, I promise. Thanks a ton for sticking around. Even if you're too rattled to click through right now, I get it, no pressure. Know this, I truly appreciate you all, and I hope you'll swing back by. Building this community means the world to me. True crime isn't just videos, it's about connecting over the tough stuff. Take care, and catch you in the next one.